When people think of Paul McCartney, they imagine the smiling Beatle, the gentle voice behind Hey Jude, and the man who seemed too kind for conflict. But behind that polished image was someone far more intense, guarded, and quietly haunted by betrayal. For decades, fans believed the Beatles' biggest battles were creative, but Paul carried something deeper, private grudges that shaped his life long after the band ended. The most painful wound was John Lennon. They wrote history together, but their friendship cracked as fame grew. Paul's perfectionism clashed with John's rebellious spirit, and after manager Brian Epstein died, everything spiraled. By the time Paul sued to dissolve the Beatles' business, John saw it as betrayal. Their feud spilled into music, with Lennon's brutal "How Do You Sleep?" and Paul's quieter response in "Too Many People." They were only beginning to reconnect when Lennon was murdered in 1980, leaving Paul with regret that never healed. Then came Michael Jackson, a betrayal that felt personal. Paul once advised Michael about the value of owning song copyrights, never imagining Michael would use that lesson against him. In 1985, Jackson bought the publishing rights to much of the Beatles' catalogue. To Paul, it wasn't business, it was a knife in the back. Their friendship never recovered. Paul also carried deep hatred for Mark David Chapman, the man who killed Lennon. Chapman didn't just murder John, he erased the Beatles' last chance at closure. Paul refused to even speak his name, calling him a coward who stole part of their soul. Inside the band, tension burned with George Harrison, who grew tired of being treated like the younger brother. Their clashes during the Let It Be sessions nearly broke them completely. And then there was Yoko Ono, whose constant presence in the studio changed everything. Paul didn't hate her for loving John, he hated what her influence did to the Beatles' fragile balance. But the man Paul blamed most for destroying the Beatles was Alan Klein, the manager John, George, and Ringo trusted against Paul's warnings. Paul fought him, was labeled the villain for suing, and later was proven right when Klein was exposed for fraud, yet by then, the Beatles were already gone. Paul rarely speaks openly about these grudges because he understands the cost. The world wants the smiling Beatle, not a man filled with anger. So he buried it in silence, let the music do the talking, and carried his scars quietly, proof that even the happiest face in rock history was never free from heartbreak.